Hi, it's Alastair McIntyre here for electricscotland.com. As this is now Hogmanay, so tomorrow will be the 1st of January 2017, I thought that it would be a good time to do a little review of what happened to me during this year and what happened in my world, basically, and then talk a little bit about where we might be going in 2017. So without further ado, this year saw me becoming an official old age pensioner. I retired on the 31st of January 2016, and so I'm now in receipt of various pensions, and I've put money in over the years, most of which in fact come from the UK. So the fact that after Brexit the value of the pound tanked to maybe 20% obviously means I'm getting 20% less money than I would otherwise have got. So that was not so good, but having said that, because I'm now receiving a pension, I'm actually in quite a good position financially. I will say that around the pensions, for anyone that's coming up for pension retirement, I did find there was a whole host of forms that I had to complete, both here in Canada and in the UK. I must confess I didn't expect that. I thought everyone would have had all my details and I'd just automatically receive a pension, apart from maybe being asked me where I want it to be sent and what bank to put it into. But in fact I had to re-show that I actually lived in various places and all of that kind of stuff. So it was quite a detailed amount of paperwork. And then, of course, after I started to receive the pensions, I found that because most of my pensions from the UK, I was going to get double taxed unless I did something about it. So I then had to get other forms to fill in and complete, and the Canadian government had to confirm I was actually a Canadian citizen. And so after all of that lot, the tax situation is now sorted. So there's quite a lot of paperwork involved, at least that's now set, and I don't need to bother about anything now. The next kind of main thing that happened to me was I was getting, as some of you know, I'm a member of the Knights Templars here in Canada. I'm part of the St. James Priory in Toronto. And I was the newsletter editor for the Canadian Templar. Back in about 4 years ago or so, when the new Grand Prior took over, I was asked if I would do a newsletter, because up to that point we just didn't have a newsletter. So I volunteered to do the newsletter for the term of the Prior. He was going to be serving for 3 years. And so I said, well, I'm willing to do 3 years worth of newsletters. We do it quarterly. And so I proceeded to do that. It kind of evolved into quite a large newsletter, about 60 or more pages per issue. So I wasn't just reporting on the Canadian priories and the Grand Prior work. I was also reporting about international work with O-Smith. O-Smith is the overall order, who's an NGO of the United Nations, for those that don't know. And we have Grand Priors in about 40 countries of the world. So we're part of that group. But I had, frankly, a bit of a falling out in July of 2016 when I attended a meeting in Toronto where the Grand Prior was there. Because I'd been concerned that after 3 years he should have handed on to the Grand Chancellor at that time, but he didn't and just took a 4th year. No one seemed to comment on it apart from me, because I thought by the end of his 3 years he'll want to do some review in the newsletter. But all he basically said, there has to be a vote. That was actually the only comment I got about him doing a 4th year. There was no vote. He just did a 4th year. And then at that meeting in Toronto, he said he wanted to do a 5th year. And I kind of lost the plot a bit on that, I must confess, because frankly, I don't believe he's really done anything much for Canada at all. And so I was upset about that, and upset about some of the other things that were revealed. And so I came back after that meeting and did a fairly vitriolic video about the state of Old Smith. And the tail end of this year, someone's apparently in the organisation has eventually watched it and is actually horrified with what I said, and are calling for me to be thrown out of the order. All I can say is I'm delighted that someone's noticed it and has started to tell people about it. Because the problem is, being 11 years in the order, I've always questioned about what are we doing? There didn't seem to be any transparency in the order, and we didn't seem to be achieving anything. And so I went on about that in my bit of vitriol, and said it's time that they were more honest with their members. So I think that was good. I mean, I've still to see what the repercussions are, and I'll see that in 2017, no doubt. But at least I feel that more people have heard my plea for better communications and better transparency, and hopefully that might get them to do something about it. So, these were two things that affected me personally, but also things that I was quite heavily involved in, was that I've always believed that the UK should come out of the EU. And as an independent Scotland, if we ever got there, I recommended that they didn't become a member of the EU. So obviously when the Brexit campaign came out in the UK, I was very involved in discussions about Brexit, obviously putting my view that we should leave. And I added a lot of comments at that time to various newspapers that allowed you to comment on news articles. So I was quite active in those forums. And of course, when we got the result, I was over the moon and delighted with it. I think it's the right decision for the UK and the right decision for Scotland. But unfortunately, the Scots are pretty well led by the SNP. What the SNP tells them to do, most of them will follow like sheep, is all I can say. I don't think they've thought it out at all. So now that I'm now working on trying to explain what I think are the benefits. So much doom, gloom and despondency about Brexit. And yet since Brexit, Britain's performed the best it's ever performed. And of course the people that wanted to remain are a bit gobsmacked about that. And you're getting all kinds of inaccurate and stupid reporting coming through. But, that's life really. So, to me, Brexit was a major success story from my point of view. And so, as I say, I've worked hard. I've done a video about Brexit and why I think it's the right decision for us. And I've obviously put stuff up on my website to kind of semi-back that up. But of course, the other big news was obviously the US presidential elections. Now, I've got to tell you, I was for Donald Trump. I thought he had, what struck me in particular was his discussions about that American company that was going to close down the plan with something like 5,000 jobs and move to Mexico. I've always thought that's disgusting, that these big corporates get away with that. And he obviously thought so too, and said, well, they can leave, but when I become president, they're going to get the biggest blinking tariff they've ever had, so they will be forced to sell their products much more expensively in the USA. And of course, we've now seen them retracting their move to Mexico now. So, just that alone, I thought, that's great. And he also made an attempt to kind of say we need a new relationship with Russia, which I also agree. Because at the end of the day, Russia is a great country. They don't always do things the way I think they should do them, but they have the capacity to do a lot of good in the world. And I think we need to work with them. And I wasn't too happy about the way that America was dealing with Russia at that time. And I thought Trump's views on working better with Russia were solid. So I liked that. But between the election, general election in the UK, the Brexit vote and the American vote for the new president, I felt that just revealed how poorly we are served by the news anchors on television. I mean, they've got it all wrong for the UK general election, they got it all wrong for Brexit, and they got it all wrong for the presidential elections. So I ask, if a politician gets it wrong, as David Cameron did in the UK, he resigned, he did the honourable thing. But these so-called experts in the media, why don't they do the honourable thing and resign? They clearly have steered us entirely wrong throughout all these campaigns. So I call on them to do the honourable thing and resign. Let's get a whole new bunch of political thinkers onto our news media that are more in touch with real people. Because quite frankly, all these news anchors, their noses are so high up in the air, they can't see ordinary people. So I think that's a big change that still has to happen. And I don't know why we can't call these news anchors to account and ask them to resign. And I don't know if there's any means of doing that other than we can just stop listening to them. And frankly, most people are. Most people are getting the news off blogs now. And that's not good either, because if you follow people on blogs, they're usually the people that think like you, and therefore you're happy reading more of those stories that you like. But I think it's very important that you read stories you don't like, because there are always two sides to every story, and one side can't always be right. I mean, it's impossible to always be right. You've got to make mistakes and learn from them and move on. So I think we need a much better news service. I mean, I've also taken to looking at news sources from outside the Western world, like Sputnik, for example, which are Russian-based news. And they comment on stories all over the world as well as in Russian affairs. And I've learned a lot from them that I would never read in any of the Western newspapers. So, I would say that's what I've learned, is to try to read stuff that perhaps you're not in favour of, just to get the other view. Because sometimes they say something, you think, wait a minute, that resonates with me. Maybe they're right on that. And I think we have to be a little open, a little bit kinder to things. I mean, like, if someone changes their mind on something, the news media will call for the resignation. But is that not what we want? We want to be able to persuade politicians to think differently. And if we succeed, we should think that's great. We've managed to persuade someone to change their view on something. Is that not good? But no, if they change their view on something, they're called to resign. You see, that's the media. I think it's the media that totally destroyed us. And I think I think that's the thing we should try to do in 2017, is try to do something about our media. Either we just turn it off and don't watch them, because if they don't, people who don't watch, they won't be getting any money and they'll go bust. And that's what we want. We want CNN to go bust. We want Fox News to go bust. We want them all to go bust. And then we'll maybe get new, fresh faces in. Because frankly, these people at the top of these news organisations, they are telling you how to think. CNN, 100%, they're Democrats there. We know that. Fox News are Republican. We know that. But they go too far on things, and they're not willing to be a little bit more kind to the other side at times. As I say, we can't always be right all of the time. That's impossible. So, looking at different views is important. So I would call on all the major news anchors that got it all wrong in America and in Britain to resign. Do the honourable thing. Resign. So, the final thing towards the end of this year was the fall of Aleppo in Syria. And I have to say that was mostly down to Russia. They got involved and they sorted the place out. We've now got a peace. How long this peace is going to last, I don't know, because you can't predict what's going to happen. But I think we're in the best position now than we've been for years. And if we can get peace back in Syria, then a lot of these refugees that are now pouring through Europe can be repatriated back to Syria again. And that would solve a lot of the issues. I think also Africa is another continent that needs sorting. I think a lot of the aid that we put down in Africa just goes to the few barons down there. And I'm at the point where I'm saying we should send no more aid to Africa. Let Africa sort themselves out. If they want to do ethnic cleansing, let them do ethnic cleansing. And hopefully after it's all finished and over and done with, Africa will be a much better place. And frankly, a lot of these aid charities and stuff like that, you know, they're not upfront about how much of the money you send them actually goes to the real people. I mean, they'll take big fat salaries, a lot of them. A lot of them will pay big cuts to people that shouldn't get cuts so that they can get the aid into these places. I mean, I think we need to look much closer at all those charities, and they need to be more transparent with us. But as someone said recently, if you've got major hunger issues, and by 3 years of age, if you're still starving, that's stunting your mental growth. And it's maybe bad to say, but if it stunts your mental growth by the age of 3, it doesn't matter how you look after that person, they're much more likely to go to prison, much more likely to need social aid for the rest of their lives, will have more health issues and everything. So we're now putting money to people, to young children that are going to be just a cause of another generation of people that want put their hands out. I mean, we need to seriously look at all that kind of stuff, and we're not doing it. So that's when I think about 2016, is that I think we've got opportunities because of all the decisions that ordinary people have made about our political landscape. I also think that, looking ahead, that 2017 has to be a year of change, and it will be a year of change. As I say, we probably won't get rid of the idiots that are in our media, unfortunately, because I say they should go. We should get a whole new bunch of so-called interesting people to come in. I think that would be my number one hope, that we would get rid of these useless people that are in our media and bring in people that really know what they're talking about. As I say, if you watch CNN or any of the American programs about the presidential election, they got it constantly wrong all the time. And frankly, they deserve to go. But they're not honourable people. They're selfish people with their own agendas. And they won't go. They'll hang on like anything. But let it be told, all of them got it wrong. So if you're listening to the CNNs of this world, know that they're steering you in the wrong direction. They're liars. They're cheats. They're con artists. That's my view of the news media these days. And that's, I even say the same thing to the BBC, because the BBC got things wrong. And the BBC don't address issues that we need to address. I mean, all you see on Brexit is doom, gloom and despondency. Anything that goes down is to always say, oh, post-Brexit, we're going down on this, we're down on this. But if it wasn't post-Brexit, we may still have been down on that. It's not Brexit that did it. So, and there seems to be no positive stories coming out in the media about what we can do with Brexit. There seems to be no discussion, or very little discussion, going on in the mainstream media about what Britain could do with Brexit. That's all wrong as well. So we're only getting a skewed view of Brexit from the main media. That's all wrong. So, as I say, the other thing I'm hoping to do in 2017 is that I have actually, during 2016, I've now deleted electorscotland.net. No longer exists as such, because what I've done is I've taken all the content on that site and I've divided it up between electorscotland.com and electorcanadian.com. So when all the data has gone from net, it has actually gone on to the other two main sites that I'm running. The reason for doing that is I'm hoping during 2017 to create a brand new web platform under electricscotland.net, in which I'm hoping that's going to be a really good new platform to be good for mobile, tablet and desktop use, and a completely fresh view of the website. My plan is to gradually copy all the data from electricscotland.com onto electricscotland.net. And so eventually we'll relaunch electricscotland.com with a whole new look and feel, basically. But that could well take a couple of years to do, because it's really only me that actually puts stuff up on the website. I've never had the money to hire a helper of that, so literally anything that's gone up on that site, I've personally put it up. That's not to say people haven't contributed content, because they have, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that's actually put it on the site. So I'm quite looking forward to this new platform, because the new platform will allow me to get some helpers in that could also publish directly to the site, and hopefully that might help speed up the way we build the new site. So I'm quite looking forward to all that coming to fruition. The other thing that I'm planning for 2017 is I've created a new political party. It's a fictitious one, but I've called it SIP, S-I-P, which stands for Scottish Innovation Party. My idea, because I've called it Innovation Party, is that I've been very unhappy with the performance of Scotland for some time now. For example, I don't know that devolution has done much for Scotland at all. To me, the only two things that I can see coming from devolution is that we've been more aggressive for clean energy. So we've built a lot more windmills and stuff of that nature, and we've promoted tidal power and solar and all of that kind of stuff, which I think is good. The other thing the Scottish Government has done is built more public housing, because I think the price of houses is so far out of sight that a lot of young people just will never be able to afford their own homes, and we need decent public housing in Scotland. So I think these are two positive things that came out of devolution, but frankly, I can't think of anything else that Scotland's done from a devolved point of view. All I can really see is that things are getting worse under devolution. I mean, the current SNP government's been in power now for 10 years, yet our education went from being the best in the world to now being only average. And actually England's better than Scotland in two of the classifications. So our education system has failed badly under the SNP government. The other devolved matter is health. And again, our health service is in a hell of a state. And our debt to GDP ratio is the worst of all EU countries. I mean, what we're doing is unsustainable in Scotland. Our justice system is a joke. Again, it used to be the best legal system in the world. Now it's a joke. I mean, if you look at the named person scheme, for example, our Supreme Court in Scotland said, yeah, this is okay, pass it. But they appealed it to the Supreme Court down in England, and they rejected it because it was against human rights, the European Union's human rights. Because essentially, if a named person decided that they wanted to spread a report around about your family, the kids, they could just do it. And that was against the human rights, because while they might pass it to someone else for a particular reason, they had to inform people. But under the named person scheme, there was no constraint on. They could pass it to anyone they want. And we've already found that one of the named people that was going to come on is a paedophile. So, there had to be, it was just bad legislation. Yet our Scottish Supreme Court passed it. They said it was fine. So now we've got people that are Supreme Court judges that just don't have the brain power and the analytical power to do a proper job for us. And our court system is a disaster. I mean, there might be 9 cases scheduled for a court. Lucky if even one of them goes through, because people just don't turn up. They couldn't give a damn about our court system. That's costing a huge amount of money. So all the devolved powers that we've got in Scotland have been frittered away, wasted, and Scotland is worse off today than it was when we didn't have a devolved government. That's my view. And I want to follow that through, because I'm saying, our NHS is in a mess. How do we fix the problems? And what I'm doing is I'm putting together some of my thoughts, and I'm hoping that by the time these kind of articles go up on the site, that you'll be able to read them and make your own judgments. And for that matter, I'd absolutely love for any of you to put your own suggestions in. I mean, for example, one of the articles I've just already done to start this SIP section off, and by the way, the SIP section, if you go to Scotland's Future section of the site, under there you'll find the SIP. When you click on the SIP, I will eventually have links to the main categories that I want to discuss. First one I got going was health, and the first article on that was about the AMA canteens in India. This was a report I read on the BBC, which I've replicated onto that AMA canteen site. But also I have an historical document on the site which talks about the public canteens that we had during World War I, which were immensely successful and addressed a lot of the issues that we're having today in Scotland. So having ended the AMA canteens report, I then posted this report to continue reading. And by the time you follow the whole thing through, I think you'll get a good picture of what we could maybe do. And I'm not saying we should do everything. What I'm saying is this is a possible way forward, and just wanted people to think about it. And people might think about it and say it's impractical, can't do it, end of story. Well, fair enough. But at least I'm putting it up as a thought for the future. And with each of these reports, I'm trying to put up videos which will give you a bit better idea. For example, I've got an obesity section, and then there I've got about 3-4 videos up. One is about childhood obesity, and it's quite shocking when you read those reports. And I've got a section on food waste, because that applies as well. I mean, at the end of the day, we need to get healthier, and it's how you get healthier. I mean, my point of view is that the people that make our decisions are all graduates and really intelligent people who have never lived under the minimum wage ever. And all I'm saying, when you're living on the minimum wage and you look at the amount of money that's available for food, you're very limited in your choices. And I'm kind of calling on the Scottish Government to get a couple of decent chefs and ask them to produce recipes for a week's worth of meals for a family of 4 and a family of 1 on the money available for food under the minimum wage. I'd like them to come up with nutritious filling meals at those very small available money that you've got for food under the minimum wage. I think that would be quite interesting to see that happening. But as I say, that's why I want to explore all this, because I'm thinking, well, how can we move forward as a country? Because on the one hand, we have to save money, spend less, but do better with the less. And that's what I want to examine. But I will also want to examine how we can get more money in from other places, like doing better for, like fishing. Fishing, after we leave the EU, will probably become another devolved area for Scotland. So what are we planning on fishing? I mean, I hope to have a report up about the fishing industry. So let's see how things go. I better take this phone call. But nice talking to you, and I hope things will go well, and I wish you all a happy new year.